I see.
Was
grace
that taught my heart to fear.
My heart to feel.
And grace my fears relieve. How precious did that grace appear.
That grace appear
In the hour I first believed.
Danger and toils and snares that I have already come. It was grace
has
brought me safe this far, and grace will lead me
home.
When we have been there, 10,000 years,
10,000 years,
bright shining as the sun. We have no less days to sing God's praise than when we first begun.
Greetings and welcome to the March on Washington Film Festival. I'm Isa Sarabay, Artistic Director. As always, we begin by acknowledging the source of all life and the seven directions, north, south, east, west, above, below, and within, and to the cycle of life of African ancestred people, those who've gone on before, those living, and those yet to be born. Because they were, we are. Because we are, they will be. Our theme, Who Tells the Story, is inspired by the African proverb, until the lion learns to write, tales of the hunt will always glorify the hunter. We are lifting up the authentic and denied voices of history, unpacking the distortions that have been told, and opening space for each of us to be self-determined in telling our own story. The physical strength and athleticism of African people has never been in doubt. Walking or running long distances, strength in hunting and working, rhythm and coordination in dancing and drumming, powerful, soulful voices for singing, strength and agility in games have infused our communal living in Africa and now dominate much of professional sports and entertainment here in America. But the relationship between sports and justice, power, inclusion, and equality has been at play for centuries. As we face these potent times of protest, how does our history in American sports play out on playing fields in the court of public opinion? Leading this very timely discussion is Bill Rhoden, veteran sports journalist who has lent his prodigious pen to the Afro, Baltimore Sun, Ebony, and the New York Times. A college athlete, Bill played on the famous 1968 Morgan State Golden Bears football team that beat the Grambling Tigers in Yankee Stadium, the annual match known as the Whitney Young Classic. He is the author of the book, $40 Million Slaves, Rise, Fall, and Redemption of the Black Athlete, and a frequent guest on podcasts and television shows. Family, please welcome Bill Rhoden.
Thank you so much, Isa Sarah. What an honor, what a pleasure. We've got just a wonderful panel, and I say that I'm honored to really be sharing the stage with them. Let's meet the panelists right now. Greg, first.
So I don't know about you guys, but when Bill Rhoden asked me to introduce myself, I panicked. Do I tell him, hi, I'm Greg Moore. I've been in journalism for about 17 years. I used to work for the Associated Press. I had a fellowship in East Africa. Do I tell him I've been at the Arizona Republic for 3 years? And in that time, I've won 2 APSC top 10s and an Emmy. Do I tell him that Mitch Albom, Mike Wilbon, and Larry Fitzgerald have all busted my chops on the air over something that I said? Or do I just say that James Baldwin said that you think your pain and anguish are unprecedented in the history of the world, but then you read, you find out the things that torment you the most are the very things that connect you with all the people who've lived, who ever have lived. And if that makes you pick up a book, Why Black People Tend to Shout by Ralph Wiley, who interviewed John Thompson. Both men are gone now and have been hugely influential in my life, even though I've never met either. Coach Thompson said, I try not to spend too much time evaluating or defending John Thompson. It's more important to me to do that which I feel is correct. The most important thing for me is to be as honest as I can and reveal the truth as I perceive it. And if it's good enough for Coach Thompson, it's good enough for me. Then I figured I'd just tell him I'm barefoot and let's keep this thing pushing.
Thanks, Greg. Lanae.
Hi there. Hi there. So I am Lanae O'Neill. Since Greg took care of the poetry, I'm free to be prosaic. I'm a senior writer. I write profiles, features, narratives, essays for The Undefeated. Before that, I spent 24 years at the Washington Post. My final job as a columnist, writing primarily about race and culture throughout my career. Notice there was a lack of sports with that. The way that I like to spin it is that gave me fresh eyes for my current job. It allowed me to see things I just hadn't seen before, and hopefully that shows up in my writing.
Right. Thanks, Lene. And a tremendous author of 3 books. You can tell us which they are. 1. All right. Thanks, Lene. Jamal.
Thank you, Bill. My name is Jamal Murphy. I'm a sports writer, attorney, and executive producer and co-host of the Bill Rhoden on Sports podcast, where we speak about these issues often. So check that out. I often write about racism and social issues in the context of sports. I have contributed to ESPN's The Undefeated as a writer, CBS Sports, and USA Today. My father was a civil rights attorney, so these issues and discussions of these issues have been ingrained in me since birth. I often look at Bill and others who write extensively about racism in sports and outside of sports the same way I viewed my father, as civil rights crusaders and social engineers for good. So thanks for having me, Bill.
Thanks, Jamal. Monique.
Hi, my name is Monique Jones. I am the deputy editor for The Undefeated. I run our day-to-day for our website. I've been in the business as a combination of reporter and editor for at least more than 10 to 15 years. And it's always been in sports, a career that has often included me being the only Black woman, often the only woman at times. And so kind of always trying to look around the room and find anyone who looks like me, throughout my career has always been a challenge. And having come across people like Bill has been really inspirational and critical in my career for sticking in this business. I've worked at the Dallas Morning News, USA Today, Boston Globe, where I covered the New England Patriots for 3 years, and then transitioned to editing, where I was at the Baltimore Sun, and then eventually at ESPN, and now at The Undefeated. So it's been a career that's all been in sports, and been a pretty great career for me so far.
Thanks, Monique. Solomon.
Hello, everyone. I'm Solomon Wilcox. I'm the proud son of a Baptist preacher and a mother who worked in manufacturing in Compton, California. I remember when I was leaving to go off to college on a football scholarship, my mother asked me, she said, "What is it that you want to study? What is it that you want to do?" And I remember telling her I wanted to be a sports journalist. I wanted to tell stories. And she looked at me and in her encouraging voice, she said, "But you don't talk." She was right. The youngest of 4 boys, I wasn't allowed to talk. But after 7 years in the National Football League and now 27 years in broadcasting, I currently work for SiriusXM NFL Radio, where I host a daily show Monday through Friday from 7 to 10 a.m. Eastern Time. I also work as a writer and analyst for a data analytics company. We cover football. You may have heard of it. It's called Pro Football Focus. And I also work as a Sports Health Alliance, the director of that department for a New York-based public relations firm. And so I am happy to be here this evening, and thank you for having me.
Thank you, Solomon. And Aaron.
Hi, good evening, everyone. It's so great to be here. My name is Erin Mathewson. I'm currently an associate producer with CNN, associate podcast producer. And I used to work with, I'm sorry, I'm hearing noises. Let me try it. Is this better?
Okay, go ahead. Just go with it.
So I used to work with The Undefeated and I see some of my former colleagues. It's so exciting to see all of you. And I think The Undefeated is such an amazing platform looking at the intersection of race, sports, and culture. And it's wonderful to be a part of this group.
Thank you so much, Aaron. We're going to hear from Aaron and Jamal and Greg in our second panel. So we'll see you guys later. So you could listen but disappear. So listen, I've got a question for the 3 of you. And let's go in this order. Monique, Solomon, Lene. I sent you a script and I had all these questions, but I said, you know what, let me start off with a curveball. And the question comes actually something that Isa Sarah said at the beginning, because of when the charges, or the lack of charges, were announced at the Breonna Taylor murder. I've spoken to a lot of young people, and they were obviously, like many of us were, they were in despair, they were depressed, and what are we going to do? And I started thinking about our ancestors, our grandfathers and great grandfathers. And I was thinking, wow, we know what they went through. So I want to ask each of you, and here we are 400 years later. So I want to ask you, start with you, Monique, and then Solomon and Lene. How have we been able to survive? And I'm hearing a lot of feedback, I'm sorry. But how have we been able to survive for these 400 years? What's been the source, do you think, of our survival? Have you seen it? Monique?
I mean, look, I don't know that I know the secret, but I would tell you that I know from my own experience in life and what my grandmother and what I know about what she passed down was faith, right? So it's either God, religion, if you believe in the sun, the moon, the stars, whatever it is that you believe in, that's what gets you through, because there is hope that's going to get you to a better day. And without that, without hope, without faith that you're going through this for a reason, you would be crushed by the moment. So I think it would be, to me, it feels like faith is something that's very critical in how we're able to overcome some of these moments where, you just wonder, why now? Why me? Why us? Why this situation? And you realize maybe there's something greater, there's something better, and you put your hope and belief into something greater than that. So that would be, what I think is probably one of the things that definitely must exist there.
Yeah, I think the source of our ability to come through some of the most trying and most difficult times known to mankind since the Middle Passage, there are some of us who did not jump ship. There are some of us who persevered. There are some of us who came out on the other side having gone through a cauldron of adversity and persecution, but yet we still remain, but yet we're still here. And I think Monique is right. I think it's a tremendous faith, whether it's our creator or God, whatever it is you believe in, you understand that there's a greater sense of purpose, and that by coming through that fire, by going through the cauldron, you emerge as this beautiful diamond, as that pressure has created. That's who we are today. And I think we understand the connection between past, the present, and the future. There are some who want to sever those connections. They want to take things out of context. But I think we have a wonderful blessing and a wonderful gift to understand that connection. And that's what allows us to see beyond the temporary moment of now, to see beyond whatever we're going through. And we can always see the sun on the horizon, knowing that there's a better day. We know that from looking back, and we also know that from looking forward. And that's what makes us wonderful people. We don't seek revenge. We seek unity. We seek a greater and brighter day. We're troubled by some of the things that we see every day, but that's not what drives us. It's really what drives us is understanding that we can be better, and we want to be part of building a much better future for ourselves and for everyone.
Same question, Lene.
So I would echo what Monique said, what Solomon said. Certainly is faith. And I would add to that mutuality. It's our ability to see each other when nobody else was seeing us, right? And we turn that into fellowship and joy and creativity, right? We're the people who call each other brother and sister, right? Who nod when we see each other on the street, even though we don't know each other, or, it's just this recognition. And we have that. And that permeates all these aspects of our lives, so that when we get together, our joy is hyperbolic because our pain has been, right? And so it's a tool. And we have used that. We've used it to talk to God, and we've used it to lift each other. And so I think that's what keeps us going. We cry at night, and then we get up and we square up our shoulders and keep it moving.
Let me ask this in the 5 minutes that we've got in this section. We're going to come back. Each of you, when did you first? Let's start with you, Solomon, and then Monique and Lene. When did each of you begin to see this racial dynamic in sports? we kind of start off innocently, but when did each of you see this racial dynamic in sports?
Well, I think for anyone who grew up during the late 60s and throughout the 70s, during that time period, for many of us, it has been and will always be Muhammad Ali. Here is a man who thoroughly believed in his conviction, and he had a sense of truth about himself that allowed himself to go through that cauldron that we talked about, where his career had been stripped from him, his ability to make a living had been taken from him. He was seen as an outcast for standing on his beliefs. Now, he was just an athlete from Louisville, Kentucky. He had participated in the Olympics in Rome and then saw that there was this sense of unfairness and injustice. And I think a lot of us empathized with him. We understood that. We felt his pain. While he should have been celebrated, he was not. And so, but what we also know is that the truth will track down a lie every single time. Our parents have taught us that ultimately that we will be vindicated. But I can tell you right now, as we all watched him persevere and go through those tough and difficult times, we didn't know if he would be restored rightfully to his titles. We didn't know what would happen. But somehow he had a greater sense, greater faith, and he was unafraid. And I think prior to him, within our community, there was this sense of fear that, hey, don't speak out too much. Be careful. You can lose that job. You can lose that pathway to inclusion and opportunity. But I think he showed us that we don't have to be afraid, that you can speak out, and particularly for athletes, because, athletes, we, like everyone else, but maybe everyone else doesn't know it, we know that our time is temporary. So if you're an athlete or an entertainer, it's temporary. And so you have to take advantage of that moment. Well, how about this? It's temporary, but he had it taken away from him, but yet he still persevered through that. And so I think that was an amazing thing. It left a great example for many of us to follow. And I think it's a foundation for what you see happening today, where athletes have found their voice. They're willing to step out and use their platforms, not necessarily for themselves. They're making millions. They've achieved economic stability, but yet they have not left the communities behind. And so they have a voice for the voiceless. And I think it all started with Muhammad Ali.
Great answer. Monique.
Yeah, obviously, that's exactly where it started. But I know from my experience in terms of where I actually witnessed it, and the numbers, it was Kaepernick, right? Like for my generation of what it was, the first opportunity was seeing this man kneel during the national anthem, and it become the storyline. And as a professional at the time, it was a storyline that people didn't know what to deal with. So I'm in a newsroom now where people are saying, how do we cover this? What do we do with this? There are all these opinions about it. We know where we are now with Kaepernick in that conversation, right? In 2016, it was a whole different story because of everything that was happening in the United States at that time. And so when I think about everything that Solomon just talked about with Muhammad Ali, Kaepernick did lose his job over this, right? Like even it took that long for us to see someone feel like they need to stand up. And we're still talking about the same issues that Muhammad Ali was standing for. And with Kaepernick, like nothing's changed in that time. And that's what's frustrating about this moment is that you feel like you're having the same conversation over and over and over again. And yet still Kaepernick's not in the NFL, right? So I think that even though we know that these things have happened over time, there's always been a racial dynamic in sports, right? I experienced it growing up. It's always been there. But the mass conversation that's happening, I don't think I haven't witnessed that since the Kaepernick situation.
Renee, I want to ask you a variation of the question. You although you don't spend a lot of time in sports, you had a son who came up in the sports system. Again, same question, but did you see it there?
It's interesting to me. I saw a lot of people, he plays quarterback. I saw a lot of people try to move him from that position, and he just had a self-determination about it. And I think that horizon was opened up for him by the visuals that he was able to engage with the NFL in the year of the black quarterback and these increasing numbers. And so what you saw were black men who were field generals, who were leading their teams and having the kind of success and the kinds of numbers with the kinds of high profile kinds of attention that you didn't get, decades ago, right? And he grew up seeing that. And so I think that had a huge influence. And I want to say just briefly to the first question in terms of experiencing race, I was a young woman and I paid attention even then to language. And I remember understanding what color the athlete that they were talking about, that the broadcaster was talking about, just by their tone and their inflection and their choice of words. As a young woman, I was struck if my back was turned that I knew if they were talking about a black player or a white player. And so, that made an impression on me. And then certainly when I did start getting into sports, walking into a press box where there were 50 people who didn't look like me and there was one of me counting me. So, right. And so then you understand who's framing those things connected, right? The reason I know what color the athlete is because the press box, is very sort of monolithic. And those are the people who are influencing, our perceptions and who are talking about these guys.
Right. And let's keep
women and men.
Yeah, and let's keep it right there. We'll close out on this, but that's a great point you bring up, because I was going to say maybe we could stay there with you, or anybody could jump into this. We talk about Kaepernick, right? And we talked about this dominant number of football and basketball players. 86%, 70%. My question to you guys is: all right, that's all well and good, but why hasn't that dominance over more than 3 decades resulted in more head coaches, more African Americans in C-suites, more black journalists? More black stadium event people. The industry outside is so overwhelmingly white, but yet we're 80% here. Why have those numbers? And we're talking about 3 decades. Why haven't those numbers translated into more black power outside of the field anywhere? Who wants to?
Yeah, I'll just start. I'll try to be very brief. I think what we all have to understand, for our white brothers, our black brothers and sisters, everyone needs to understand that we all exist in what we call a social construct. Things have been constructed in a way that says, okay, you're allowed to do this. And that was Jackie Robinson. You're allowed to play baseball, but you're not allowed to manage. The unwritten rule. Okay, you're allowed to integrate in the National Football League, which occurred 2 years prior to Jackie Robinson playing in Major League Baseball. It was with the Cleveland Browns, okay, with Bill Willis and Marion Motley. You're allowed to play. You're allowed to participate. And we see that even going on today. Okay, you can be the sideline reporter and maybe even the color analyst, but not on a nationally televised game. Okay, we can get one producer in, but maybe not as a director. And so the social construct suggests that there's going to be maybe some minor moments of inclusion, but certainly not at certain levels. We all know that takes time. But at the end of the day, we think that now is the time. We know that the things that have been prescribed, the education, the experience, and all of those things that we were told that if you have these set of skills, that you too will be provided the opportunity. And we now know that there are these double standards, that the social construct only allows for a few, but certainly not for the many. And those few are not necessarily decided by talent and on merit alone. And I think we find a great sense of frustration within our community.
Yeah, Monique and Lene, take us home.
Just the players are transitory, right? And so what you see in the GMs and the reporters and these other classes of people that are permanent, that are institutional, that have a pipeline, right? And that's white by design. It's white and it perpetuates itself because if it's not intentional reaching out, these people are here to stay. It's the players that come and go. And so that's the culture then. That's the next level up, right?
Yeah, to Lonnie's point, Yeah, to Lane's point, if you just look at the NFL, look at the surnames of some of the folks in these positions. Look at the videographer on a team and see if that last name matches up with someone who might have been a head coach maybe 10 years ago. And watch how that person becomes an offensive coordinator in 10 years, right? Like you can trace the different ways, to Lane's point, that we see the connections happening where, so and so's brother over here hires this person over here and gives them an opportunity. And if we're not in that construct, to Solomon's point earlier, then you're not going to get that opportunity. You're going to get the job that once it's gone, it's gone. You don't have the power to bring someone else behind you to get another opportunity. And that's where it's going to have to really change, is where you have an opportunity, you're in a position of power where you can bring someone with you. And at this point, we're not at that point yet.
But it's changing though, right? I mean, we're getting there, right? We're being strategic. We're looking around corners and saying, hey, how can I bring on my people? How can I create a pipeline instead of just waiting for one to be provided for me? There's some gatekeepers you have to go through, and there's some gates like you have to kind of storm.
Right. Yeah. And we're seeing that with ownership, right? You're seeing Michael Jordan now get involved with NASCAR. You've seen Russell Wilson. You've seen Patrick Mahomes now using this money that they've earned to now have purchasing power and buying teams and having a stake in that. I mean, that's kind of getting into what you're talking about, right? That's the next step, is ownership.
Yeah, those are great points, and we're going to come back there when you guys come back for the last session, because I think we're really getting to this point, and it kind of how we began, how we've survived 400 years. Well, it's an evolution. It's not one home run. It's not one silver bullet. It's like you run your leg in a relay race, you hand it off, other person runs their leg, and that's just the way it is. So listen, Solomon, Monique, Lane, you're going to join us in the last segment. Right now, we're going to bring in three other folks. But listen, you guys are great. We're going to bring in right now Jamal, Greg, and Aaron. Speaking of relay races, we're gonna bring back Aaron, Jamal, and Greg. Hey guys, how are you doing?
All right, how are you?
Right, listen, let me start off with the same whip around question, and that's you are. I think you guys may be on the younger side of our panel this evening. But let's start with Aaron, Jamal, and Greg. Same question I asked them. What's your source of hope? I mean, you look at what's happened with Breonna Taylor. You're on and on and on and on. I mean, my generation is an Emmett Till. I'm sure another. I mean, white people have been murdering us for but yet here we are. Aaron, what's been the source of our survival?
I mean, well, my immediate thought is prayer is the first thing that comes to mind. But I just think I feel like there's someone always pushing. I was introduced to sports through Debbie Thomas, and she's a figure skater. She won she was a bronze medalist in the 1988 Olympics. There were not around that time, there was a lot of terrible things happening, but my mother always made sure I looked at her and like, this is what you can become. And I feel like there's always someone who's doing well. And I think it's just important to focus on those people.
Great.
I just think that I am my ancestors' wildest dreams. I don't know about you, Bill, but I never thought I would get this shot. And the simple reality that I'm here, I'm getting this shot and I'm making the most of it is proof that perseverance pays off. I think about people who had talent that they weren't able to show, and every generation does a little bit better, does a little bit better, does a little bit better. And to me, if you've got evidence, that goes a long way toward producing faith.
Mm-hmm. Jamal.
Yeah, I just feel like we are an extremely strong group of people. We've been through so much. We don't know any other way but to keep pushing. If you look through history, I mean, there were so many times that you could say, we had been through trials and tribulations where we should have quit. There's no way out of them, and we have continued to push forward. So, for me and our generation, I don't think we have a choice, and I don't think we know any other way but to keep pushing forward and run that relay race that you always talk about.
Mm-hmm. Greg, you wrote this is the 100th anniversary of the Negro Leagues. what would have been the Negro Leagues had it not collapsed because of Jackie Robinson. But I mean, not blaming him, but you know, yeah, that's going. He was a great man, all that, but he made a great institution greater and a black institution. But let me ask you: you wrote a very strong column. You basically called out the Attorney General of Kentucky, right? Who delivered the news about Breonna Taylor, a black man. And to me, that's almost integrate. You know, now, 50 years ago, they would have had to trot out a white guy. But now, because of integration, they trot out a black puppet. So each of you talk. You said that he basically betrayed black people. I want to ask you to follow up on that, but also, I guess, to each of you, isn't that part of the problem of sort of integration? In that people like that guy who's Republican and many of our Republican friends, they're saying, well, Greg, Jamal, who's the arbiter of blackness now? You know what I mean? I mean, you know, who's saying I'm not black enough? So let's talk about that.
So the thing I think is that you need numbers, like overwhelming numbers. You can be whatever you want, say like in the NBA. You can have different black guys with different opinions and different ways to be black. But if there's only one black person in the space, they kind of bear the responsibility of trying to represent for a massive group of completely diverse people. So I think if you've only ever got one, that's a problem. I think in the case of the Kentucky Attorney General.
Yeah, Greg, cut it. Go ahead.
He tried to blame the system. And I'm sorry, but if you're going to blame the system, that's cool. How about we'll use the system against you? Oh, and since you're not up for re-election since 2023, we'll take it out on the party that propped you up. You have no idea what you're talking about. You're up there crying. If my mother and if it happened to me, ain't nobody thinking about you or your mother right now. Okay? Nobody's thinking about you or your mother right now. We're thinking about Breonna Taylor. Say her name. This is about her right now. And since you want to use the system and hide behind the system and you couldn't figure out a way to do your job, which was to get justice, all right, cool, we'll use the system too.
Mm-hmm. Right. Same thing question. Let me ask you a question, Jamal. And this kind of gets into who's black, who's not. In the bubble, remember everybody was talking about Black Lives Matter. Everybody was kneeling on day one. Day two, the brother from the Orlando Magic said, I ain't kneeling. I'm standing up. I don't want to kneel. And he didn't wear a Black Lives Matter thing. Again, who is an Uncle Tom in 2021? I mean, how do we determine who's black and who's down, Jamal Aaron, in 2021? Is this guy the Orlando Magic guy? You know, what do we do with black people like that?
Well, I think it goes to your point. It's not about, at this point, it doesn't matter. It's not about you just being black. It's not about just simple, plain diversity. Well, you know, that the Republicans love to trumpet or pretend to trumpet. Well, they'll put one black person who's an ultra conservative black person on the Supreme Court, or allow them to be their one and only senator, or allow them to be the Kentucky Attorney General. It's not about just being black and that being some kind of diversity. It's really about diversity of thought. You need, and to go to Greg's point, you need more numbers. You know, black people are not a monolith. Okay, we know that. 10% of black people are going to vote for Trump. Maybe 10, 15% are going to vote for Trump. We are not all the same. So it's not just about putting a black face there. It's about putting any person with diversity of thought who understands that black people are an equal part of this country. So it's not about, you know, just putting a black person in a space anymore. And I think we all know that. The only people that don't know that are Republicans.
You know, Bill, I want to add to that. You know, I think we have to be really careful who we are labeling an Uncle Tom and who we just don't agree with. You know, I think I've been reading a lot, and I think there are a lot of black people who are, especially when we're talking about Daniel Cameron, there are a lot of black people who are not happy with the way black politicians have been doing things. And I think the difference then is, how do you think things should change? And so I think Daniel Cameron thinks he's found a way through the Republican Party to bring about a change he thinks is worth it. And we don't have to agree. I hate to say it, but at the Republican National Convention, he had some pretty, I think, on-point critiques of Joe Biden, but I certainly don't agree with everything, certainly his take on the Breonna Taylor case. And I agree with Jamal. A diversity of thought is incredibly important.
Mm-hmm. If I can piggyback on that, Aaron, I'm right there with you. I'm not comfortable calling anybody an Uncle Tom. I'm not comfortable labeling anybody as somebody who is intentionally pandering to whites by putting down their own race, is intentionally trying to enrich himself for doing that. But I do think that when people make decisions that clearly go against the overwhelming majority of their experience, the experience of people who happen to share their skin color, they should be ready and willing to answer some very important questions from representatives of the larger group.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you guys this. And I want. This is a question about the Black Lives Matter in sports. I'm kind of thinking, is it effective? Has it been effective? And my thing is that it seems as if the players have gone as far as they can go. It seems now you need the multi-billionaires who own the teams, who run the leagues. They've got to do more than just throw money at these problems. What do you guys think about that? What do you think about the players and what they've done, how they react to Black Lives Matter, playing in the bubble, playing the NFL season, playing, college football. But have they gone as far as they could do? Do they need more muscle now? Jamal, then Greg, then Aaron.
Yeah, they need more muscle. And I think, particularly, I'll start with the WNBA, who I feel like has done really the most. And they are really the leaders in terms of protest, and the movement that we're currently in. And the NBA, I think, is piggybacked off of the WNBA. And I think what they've done is important. And do I think they've done enough? I think they've done a lot, but I think, they have to keep going. They're part of this struggle as well, just like, all of us everyday people. They have more notoriety, more leverage. So there is some sort of responsibility that comes with that. What we see now from LeBron James, More Than a Vote initiative, these are huge deals to me. We haven't seen this type of activism in the sports realm for at least, for about 50 years or so. So, and I think it is doing a lot. I think when you look at the number of people that they are registering to vote, I mean, that's one of the biggest issues we have as a country in terms of people not voting, our own people not voting to further our own interests. And it's the WNBA and the NBA that are spearheading that. So I think that's a huge deal. And I think that they need to continue to do that. I think this is just the beginning. So yes, I think it's a great thing that they're doing. And you could say they've done enough, but just like all of us, they have to keep going as well.
Yeah. Same question, Greg. And I got a question for you, Aaron.
It's time for athletes to stand up and take the fight back to your neighborhood and show the rest of us exactly how to be the change that you feel like you need. If you come from a neighborhood where the school system isn't what it needs to be, open civics classes, open reading programs, literacy programs. If you come from a family where your parents were always working and you didn't have a lot of interaction, open up some free daycare. Show us how to help you. Get up, take the fight back to your neighborhoods, whatever community you come from, and show us how to help and be the change. But I'll give you one more thing to think about. Anybody says these protests aren't working isn't paying attention. Michael Jordan owns a NASCAR team. The state of Mississippi no longer flies a rebel flag. What you're looking at is Black Lives Matter on a court. And there's going to be a group of kids that grow up knowing that Black Lives Matter because it said it on the court. They had a Black president in their lifetime. They had a Black superhero in the Black Panther in their lifetime. Don't tell me this stuff doesn't add up and matter in years to come. It's going to pay off. It's making progress.
It gets back to the point as we close out this section that we made in the first segment that this is about evolution. It's not just one thing. It's
right.
But Aaron, let me ask you a question. This is sort of as a Black woman in the industry, we talk about the WNBA, which I think has been terribly marginalized. I mean, as Jamal said, they have been ferocious, and not just this year, for years, they have been ferocious. Do you think is marginalized? But also, this is two different questions, by the way. Do you think, how do you stop the NBA being marginalized? But also, as a black woman in the industry, do you see cracks in this granite ceiling, and have black men been allies, and have white women been allies in terms of, to black women? So I've asked you a lot of questions. You can choose which one you want to answer.
Can I just say the first thing? I think you asked about, I just want to say real quickly about Black Lives Matter. I think there's a difference between the organization Black Lives Matter and just believing that Black Lives Matter. So I think, in the bubble, I don't know if they're actually working with the organization, but I do think there are a lot of players who truly want to see equality and justice for the Black community. And I think similar to what Greg said, you do that every day. Once you are off TV, what are you doing to help Black people? Okay, do I think there are cracks? Yeah, I think, I just recently got my first full-time journalism job, and I was hired by a white woman. I think that's awesome. But I think Black men and women, Black people have been helping me get there like the whole time. And I think certainly Black men have helped me open doors. I mean, Bill Rhoden, I worked with you for several years, and I can definitely say I would not be where I am in my career without you. I think you've been a fantastic mentor. Same with Jamal. And I think that's what it takes. We all have to work together. But I think I have been teaching you, I'm always like, Bill, what about women? What about women? And so I think that's been really good. So I think we've been learning from each other. And then I forget all the other questions.
Well, I just said, have Black men, and what about Black women? I'm always stunned, fascinated. This is the 100th anniversary in August was of women getting the vote. But Black women were still struggling, and even Black women were even marginalized in that movement. And so I think there's always been this racial divide in the feminist movement. I'm wondering, as a younger Black woman, have you seen that divide heal, or do you still see white women still struggling with dealing with the gender part of you and dealing with the Black part of you?
Wow. There's a divide. There is a divide, but I do think as much as I have seen the divide, I've also seen people, women, Black and non-Black women, working to bridge it. I think I'm in a generation where people are willing to talk about white privilege, and where white women are willing to own up to the privileges they've had and how they've sometimes push women of color out the way, and are trying to be cognizant of the space they take up. And I think that's, I think there was a question about, is this moment different? I think that's what makes this different. I think people are being more aware and conscious, and they want to do better, at least some of the people I know. And that is very hopeful to me.
Cool. All right, well, that's it. Okay, so Greg, Jamal, and Aaron, stay with us. We're going to bring back our first group. So we can kind of close out. We're going to bring back Solomon, Lene, and close this. I still hear that noise in the background. Maybe it's coming from the White House. I'm not sure. Hey, let me, guys, first of all, let me just say just briefly, it's been such a joy and honor tonight, obviously, but then working with each of you. I've had different working relationships with all of you, and it's really been a joy and a pleasure to be able to talk you all into coming and being together on this set. It's been just phenomenal. Each of you are just phenomenal professionals. Just really a joy being able to have this kind of party. Let me ask you this, and again, I don't want to pick the order. You guys have to jump in, but somebody at the last panel mentioned the same thing, and I've heard this repeatedly. This moment seems different. And Solomon, you and I talked about this. People say, wow, this moment seems different. And I'm thinking, 1968, there were white people there, but some of the same white people who are now in their 60s, 70s are part of the problem. I mean, they decided okay, we're tired of this. Let's go back to being white. So I'm wondering, if each of you, is this moment truly different, or do we have to wait? Do we have to wait another 20 years? Let's start with you, Solomon, and then let's go. Let's jump in. But
Yeah. No, I think it's a really good question in terms of will what we see today lead to positive outcomes that will be more permanent than maybe some of the things that we've seen in the past. I just think that history and life itself, there's a lot of movement. There's ebbs and flows, right? We see progress, and then we might see regression, and then we see progress extending even further than where we had before. So I don't believe that progress is stagnant. I think it's a constant movement. It's a constant tug of war. I think what we need to understand that there are forces in this world and in this country that does not seek equality, that does not seek justice, that does not seek a balance of fairness. There are elements that says that, look, if there's equality, that means that where I have been in my life and with my ancestors, that for them, that represents a come down on the scales of justice and fairness in life. And we need to help them to understand that that's not what it means. That inclusion, by including everyone in the process, by everyone being allowed to bring the best of what they have to offer to this mosaic, that it makes this country a better place. And I think Abraham Lincoln tried to speak to that. Martin Luther King tried to speak to that. And we still have our leaders trying to speak to that.
Hey, Solomon, thank you for that. Bill, thank you for inviting me. I've learned a lot from all of you guys on the panel so far, so thank you for allowing me to be a part of this. I think one way that we can measure the progress is just by looking at... Say again?
Put your shoes on.
No. I think one way we can measure the progress is just how quickly everything speeds up. So check it out. Before Jack Johnson was the heavyweight champion, they didn't let black people compete for the heavyweight championship. Then it took a while before you had Joe Louis, and then you had the president squeeze his arm and say, we need muscles like this to turn back Nazi Germany. Then it took a minute before Joe Louis kind of gave way to Muhammad Ali and the movement of the 60s. But now, look, things are just speeding up, speeding up, speeding up. You get more, and it's less and less remarkable. You don't have to wait decades between one group speaking and the next group speaking. You can have Trayvon in 2012, then you can have Mike Brown come right behind that in 2014, and then now here we are in 2020, and the movement has been sustained for 8 years now. The Miami Heat started this thing, and it hasn't gone anywhere. So I think if you want to talk about measuring progress, you can just see the sustained effort and the fact that this movement won't be turned back. I think that speaks to progress right there.
Monique and Lanae, again, same question. Is this a different moment? Is this a new moment? Is this a unique moment? Or is this just another moment and we're waiting for our white friends to decide whether they're going to stick with it or whether when they get to be 45 or 50, they're saying we're done. we need the house in the Hamptons. I want to be white. Lanae,
it's the new moment in the context of this movement that has social media, right? Which means people don't have to go through a translator. They can have a message that is unfiltered. It means that you don't need a camera crew from a network to show up before you can document injustice. It means that there are citizen journalists who can turn their camera on when they see something. They can record, they can capture in real time what people are talking about, but it comes to life. It jumps off the page. You can put the lie to the police report, right? Just by using your phone. You can put the lie to the public statement about what happened just by panning the crowd. And I think that has the potential to carry this moment further. It certainly will reach more people and people worldwide and do it without a filter.
Monique, and let me ask you a specific answer that question, Monique. But then I also want to ask you, is what you've seen in sports of athletes, do you think that this is a unique moment for athletes? I think it's maybe something that do you think that this has forever changed Black athletes?
Well, I think, and to your first question, I think the movement is here, but now the next part is what's the action, what's going to change? So we shouldn't be able to say We have, Mike Brown. We shouldn't be able to have the names be as frequent as we are having, right? Like the protests are sustaining because the action is still there. The police brutality is still there. And so now I think now that the movement is here, what's the next phase of that movement that then starts the action that's going to help stop the moments that have led to some of these protests? That's the part that I think is that's when we will know that this is something that's been impactful, that we kind of have that next moment, that next step, whether you believe it's defunding police, whether you believe it's, getting rid of how police interact, whatever that moment is for you, I think that's the next step. For athletes, however, I do think that this is something that has been eye-opening. When you look at what happened with the Milwaukee Bucks and you look at the power that players now realize that they have. For college athletes, I mean, to me, to see what college athletes now have realized, where they are saying together, we don't want to play in COVID. Now, it's very interesting that now many of these conferences that had very strong moments to start and said they weren't playing are now going to end up playing. And so, college athletes are now starting to kind of test the waters a little bit to see how much power they have. And I think they're seeing what's happening in the professional level. When you band together, which everyone has been saying, but now they realize it. I think that's a moment that they are going to be able to build on, and that might change what's going forward.
Let me ask you this, Jamal, and then Aaron. Jamal, you covered a lot of college sports, and as Monique said, I mean, the Big Ten commissioner was black. They made a principled stand, that we're not going to play, and the Pac-12, we're not going to play, But now all of a sudden, and you got, they Black Lives Matter, but you're sending these 5 power conferences that depend basically on black muscle and said, y'all go back into this. We need the money. Go back and play. So what does that say about, when we talk about Black Lives Matter power, it seems like it's powerless.
Right. I mean, it's a tough question. They're college athletes. They're not being paid. But it starts much earlier than college. I mean, when you're that level of athlete, you've been trained and conditioned by coaches for a long, long time, since you were probably 10, 11 years old. You're taught not even to think about all these other issues. So the one thing that I am encouraged by is the awareness factor. Like, we're talking about Black Lives Matter on the NBA court and what that means to the younger generation. I think, players in high school now, players who are in college now are starting to see, starting to become aware of their true environment, when they're not on the field or when they're not on the court, and they're starting to become emboldened. I mean, the Big Ten and Pac-12 players did get together and put together a list of demands initially in order to get them to play during these times. So I think that's a positive sign. But another thing, this COVID era has shown you, and it should show the athletes also, that what a business this really is. It's all about money, and it's obvious now, and that's probably a good thing that has come from this situation. Now it's totally transparent that you are there to make the university money. They don't care if students, we don't have to have students on campus, but we got to have you on campus to make the university money. And I think there's no way around not seeing that. The players see that. They now know their value, and they will soon know their leverage.
Aaron, hold that thought for a minute, because Solomon, I want to ask you something, because you the one person on this panel who has played at a higher level in college and in pro. What do you think about this? I mean, we're talking about power and all that kind of stuff, but is it, is it really sticking? Are we really talking about true power? Is this just a, what do you see?
Well, no, I think there is some power. I think, to Jamal's point, I think players have recognized that they do hold a great amount of leverage. I think trying to rationalize and still how to keep the system intact, to which many players benefit greatly. Many athletes, not just in football, but multiple sports across the spectrum. Title IX has seen women empowered in sports at a whole nother level, where they also have a voice on campus, and they also hold sway, and they're generating tremendous amount of revenue for many of these universities and institutions as well. And so now, how do they all continue to push forward to gain some equilibrium, exercise their platforms and power that they now know they have, but yet how do you keep it all intact so that they can still filtrate through those systems and reap the reward of economic prosperity? Remember, LeBron James sought to go around that whole infrastructure. He decided he wasn't going to enrich anyone else. He knew then what he brought to the table, and he was going to begin to maximize his economic power from the first day he left high school. And I remember, at least in my community and all around the country, people were upset because I think they became aware that he was aware and that other athletes would become aware. And that's why we are where we are at today. And so I think the athletes are trying to figure out how to keep college football or college basketball or women's college basketball, how to keep it intact, but at the same time, create some equilibrium where we're extracting from all the money and all the finances that are changing hands. How can we participate in these economic gains that we see taking place? And I think it's a fair and rightful conversation to have.
Aaron, go ahead. We only have a minute left, but go ahead, Aaron.
I want to piggyback off that. There are only a few athletes like LeBron James who, if he were to quit basketball today, everybody would still know and care what LeBron James is doing. A lot of athletes don't have that platform without sports. Like the WNBA, they kept playing. I mean, they protested and they took a day of reflection, but they kept playing because they were getting the attention because they were playing. If they all quit and went home, I don't know that we'd care. And I think that's the same thing with college athletes. I just spoke to the number one, ESPN's number one ranked basketball player going into the season, Ryan Howard at Kentucky. She helped organize a social justice march and fair because of what was going on in Kentucky and George Floyd. And I don't know if she would have done that had it just been Ryan Howard on her own. So I think there's a way to leverage this moment, even if you're playing.
Let me ask each of you, we're going to close out now, but I want to hear from each one of you. Let's just go Lene, Monique, Solomon, Greg, Jamal, and Aaron. What, moving forward, we talk about this relay race and your passion. What race are you running? What's your passion? What baton are you handing? I'll just briefly from each of you. As we talk about running this race, Lene, what race are you running?
I think you recognize that this is a moment and that you have to seize it, right? You have to use it to educate yourself and bring as many people as you can with you, because the window will close, or history teaches us at the very least it will narrow, right? And so this is time for a power grab. And it's self-power, it's community power, it's institutional, organizational, however you define that. But this is the moment to take very big strides and to take as many folks as you can along for the way.
Thank you, Monique. What race are you running?
Yeah, and sharing too, right? To take on like sharing knowledge, sharing information, telling the truth, like when people come to you and they seek advice, and what are you telling people? Don't give them the version that they want to hear. Give them the answer that's going to help them be better. Like just being honest and upfront with people and sharing information, sharing what you know, bringing them with you. To Lane's point, I think that information is only going to help them. So I think just kind of being open and sharing is the thing that I kind of think about the most.
Solomon.
I think about a conversation I had a few years ago with my old college professor, Dr. Miles, and he talked about his father when his father retired from his job. He came in and said, today is the day that I go in and I give these people their job back. And I remember asking Dr. Miles, what was that all about? He said his father told him that it's not my job. The job belongs to them. There's going to come a day when they're either going to take it back or I have to give it back. And that opened up my mind to a lot of different things in terms of how we assume the positions and the opportunities that we have, because it's not our job. The job is on loan to us for a period of time, and one day we're going to have to give it back. And so I really think about how I'm going to spend my time and the roles and opportunities that have been afforded to me. And that is through mentorship of young people and helping them to understand how they got here and what the responsibilities are to continue to cultivate positive environments, fertile ground for growth and development, and helping younger people, but also respecting and listening and revering and honoring older people who are on their way out. And I think that's how we all come together to create a much more positive environment in our workspace and in our daily lives. That's what I'm all about in every single role, whether it's in my community, in my church, or in the workplace.
Great. The race you're running.
Sure. Yeah, no, Solomon's exactly right. We have to connect our generations. We have to look out for the generations that came before and behind. To Monique's point about telling the truth, I had the distinction of speaking to John Carlos from the 68 Olympics. He told me he was a shot of castor oil. He was the thing to clean it all out. So for me, my race that I'm running is to just say it. For me, the race that I'm running is to teach everybody around me, to connect people who don't know that they have things in common, and to also introduce people to experiences and ideas and emotions, especially the emotions that they wouldn't have access to without me making that translation for them. The race I'm running is to teach always.
Jamal Murphy.
Yeah, no, I agree with Greg. I think, as a writer, especially, tell the truth, talk the truth, educate those who don't know the truth. I just think you just have to be true to who you are. You have to, not be afraid to speak truth to power, and also listen to the other side and understand where they're coming from. Not to say that they're coming from a genuine place, but you at least have to know what defense they're playing against you. Is another some more words of wisdom from Bill, because they have an agenda also. We have to understand what that is, and we need to be truthful in how we talk about what we're doing.
Aaron, you're the youngest person on this panel, so we'll let you close it out with with a view from the person in the generation of the 30s.
Well, ditto to what everyone has said. I think I would just add, I don't think you can be successful today if you don't know how to interact with people of different races and backgrounds. And so I'm definitely here for being able to help have those conversations and to learn more about people I don't know and be sensitive to that, because otherwise I'm going to get left behind.
All right. Well, listen, Aaron, Jamal, Greg, Solomon, Monique, Lanae, obviously we can go on for another 2 hours but I just want to thank each of you just for your time, your insights. This has been great. And I think whoever's seen this, it's one of those things that if they see this again, they're gonna like, wow. Right. But hey, thank each of you. This has been tremendous. And, that's all I can say. It's a heartfelt thanks to each of you giving us your time on this panel, on this festival. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Yes, thank you. What a deep bench of talent and wisdom on display. Thank you so much, Bill, for pulling this together. Be sure to join us for all of the films and discussions of the festival. Explore the website to see the many films, resources, reading room information we've made available. And we've decided to extend your access to the festival for another week. Some people are just coming on to see what we have to offer. So most of our films and all of our discussions and resources will be available until October 4th. So until we see each other next time, march on.
Yeah.